Few of us ever face the choice to die for another person, as St. Maximilian Kolbe did in Auschwitz, where he chose to substitute himself for a condemned man. But after having stood up for human rights against a number of violent regimes, Pope John Paul II risked assassination every time he chose to appear in public. At 5 p.m. on May 13, 1981, the feast of Our Lady of Fatima, Pope John Paul II climbed into an open-air Pope-mobile and was driven into St. Peter's Square, where some 20,000 people awaited his weekly Wednesday audience. The custom was to make a circuit around the square before heading to the raised platform in front of St. Peter's Basilica, where the Pope would address the crowd. That day, the Pope-mobile was driving slowly through the square along pathways created by wooden barriers. The Pope had just held and returned a little girl to her parents when Mehmet Ali Yaka, a Turkish man and trained assassin, fired multiple pistol shots from about 10 feet away and struck the Pope in the abdomen. The Pope-mobile rushed to a nearby ambulance, which took only 8 minutes to travel 4 miles through the clogged Roman evening traffic. John Paul later recalled,
"I remember that journey to the hospital. For a short time, I remained conscious. I had a sense that I would survive. I was in pain, and this was a reason to be afraid. But I had a strange trust. I said to Father Stanisław that I had forgiven my assailant. What happened at the hospital, I do not remember."
At the hospital, John Paul's blood pressure continued to fall dramatically and his pulse weakened. His longtime secretary, Monsignor Stanislaw Dziwisz, gave him last rites. After suctioning off 6 pints of blood, doctors found the sources of the bleeding: a perforated colon and 5 wounds in the small intestine. The day after surgery, the Pope regained consciousness, received Holy Communion, and began reciting the prayers of the day with Monsignor Dziwisz and others. 3 days after the surgery, the Pope recorded this message for his Sunday Angelus prayer.
"I am particularly close to the 2 persons wounded together with me. I pray for that brother of ours who shot me and whom I have sincerely pardoned. United with Christ, priest and victim, I offer my sufferings for the Church and for the world. To you, Mary, I repeat, totus tuus."
Recovering from the assassination attempt took much longer than expected because of a strange illness. At the end of May, about 2 weeks after he was shot, the Pope still had difficulty breathing, chest pains, and a fever, but seemed to be recovering and returned to the Vatican. By mid-June, though, the Pope had a spiking fever, was not regaining his strength, and returned to the hospital. A battery of tests showed that John Paul had contracted a virus from a tainted blood transfusion given during surgery on the day he was shot. Totally in character, the Pope wanted to know what the virus looked like, and doctors showed him the slide from which doctors had made their diagnosis. The Pope also recognized that his survival was a miracle. Aliaka had first aimed at his head, but when the Pope picked up the little girl, the assassin adjusted to fire at the Pope's abdomen. That shot missed the abdominal aorta by millimeters. If it had been hit, the Pope would have bled to death long before reaching the hospital. The Pope kept his sense of humor even in the hospital. He gave his team of doctors a special name, the Sanhedrin, after the Council of Jewish authorities at the time of Jesus, who interpreted the law and naturally demanded obedience. After his doctors met, John Paul would ask them, "What did the Sanhedrin say today? And what did they decide on my behalf?" But his joking too communicated a serious point about human dignity, that a patient struggle to understand his illness and participate deliberately in the healing process. Or in John Paul's language, to become the subject of his illness rather than an object of treatment. John Paul showed little interest in the swirling speculation about who was behind the assassination attempt. For him, it was part of God's plan that, since he had survived, he would continue to lead the church. The fact that he did not concern himself with an investigation does not mean that, out of a sense of justice, others, including governments, wouldn't begin to ask questions and try to seek answers.